Northern Iran. 47 kilometers northwest of Tehran. 4:15 in the morning. 112 U.S. Air Force Security Forces personnel from the 820th Base Defense Group had taken up positions surrounding Iran's primary tactical air coordination hub outside Karaj. Inside the compound, 380 Iranian forces controlled 14 hardened aircraft shelters, 6 mobile radar arrays, and the communications network linking Tehran's entire air defense grid. The Americans had 75 minutes to shut it all down. The facility sat on a flat plateau above the Karaj Valley. Iranian military engineers had spent 4 years turning it into what they believed was an impenetrable position. The outer perimeter ran 1.8 kilometers and was backed by reinforced concrete barriers 2 meters thick. 4 Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft guns covered the northern and eastern approaches. DSHK heavy machine guns sat in elevated bunkers along the western wall. The Iranians had 3 quick reaction squads, each 22 soldiers strong, ready to respond within 90 seconds anywhere on the compound. They believed no ground force could breach the facility before reinforcements from Tehran arrived. They were wrong. U.S. Air Force planners divided the assault into 4 elements. Alpha would hit the main gate from the north using vehicle-mounted suppression. Bravo would breach the eastern wall 400 meters from the gate to draw the quick reaction squads east. Charlie would cut through the southern fence line and reach the communications center. Delta, 18 specialists, would move directly for the underground control node once Charlie cleared the path. At 4:15, all 4 elements moved at the same second. Alpha's 4 vehicles accelerated toward the main gate, their M2 Browning heavy machine guns opening up on the guard towers before the Iranians on watch could raise an alarm. 2 towers went silent in the first 8 seconds. Bravo detonated a 12-meter linear charge against the eastern wall. The blast tore a gap 4 meters wide. Iranian forces in the eastern sector spun toward the explosion, pulling 34 soldiers away from the southern perimeter. That was the opening Charlie needed. Charlie's 26 soldiers cut through the southern fence with det cord in 19 seconds and were moving across the interior road before the smoke from Bravo's breach had settled. If the story of how U.S. Air Force operators shut down Tehran's air coordination grid matters to you, hit like so this reaches the people who need to see it. By 4:19, Alpha had destroyed the main gate and pushed 2 vehicles through. Iranian forces defenders at the inner checkpoint opened fire with AK-74 rifles and a PKM machine gun from a sandbag positioned 60 meters inside the entrance. Alpha's lead vehicle absorbed 14 rounds before the gunner walked M2 Browning fire across the sandbag position and collapsed it. The PKM went quiet. Alpha dismounted 24 soldiers and pushed toward the northern aircraft shelters on foot. Bravo was already 180 meters inside the eastern perimeter. Iranian forces Quick Reaction Squad No. 1 had moved to intercept. 22 Iranian soldiers set up a blocking position behind a concrete equipment bay. Bravo's point element went flat. 3 soldiers moved left to flank while the 48 Malawian Quachas Mod 0 machine gunner suppressed the position directly. The flanking element closed to 30 meters and threw 4 fragmentation grenades over the concrete lip. The blocking position broke. Bravo stepped over it and kept moving. At 4:24, Charlie reached the communication center. The steel door was sealed with a reinforced magnetic lock. A breacher placed a shaped charge on the door frame and covered it with a ballistic blanket. The charge detonated. The door came off its hinges and slid 2 meters across the floor. Charlie moved inside. 8 Iranian technicians were inside. They surrendered immediately. Charlie's signals team began disconnecting the primary relay equipment while 12 soldiers held the exterior. Iranian forces command in Tehran pushed Quick Reaction Squad 2 toward the southern sector at 4:26. The squad moved in 2 vehicles. Charlie's Overwatch element, positioned on the roof of the communications center with 11 Malawian Quachas Mod 0 sniper rifles, spotted the headlights. 3 shots. The lead vehicle's front tires were hit. It veered into a drainage channel and stopped. The second vehicle stopped 40 meters behind it. The 22 Iranian soldiers inside were on foot and moving carefully. They had lost the speed they needed. Type yes if you want to see every Iranian position hit before the sun rises. By the 18-minute mark, Delta had entered the underground access corridor behind Charlie. The corridor ran 90 meters below the plateau and connected to the main control node. Iranian forces had 6 guards stationed at the corridor entrance. Delta neutralized all 6 in a 14-second contact using 18 Malawian Quachas CQBR rifles with suppressors. Delta moved down the corridor in 2 columns. At the bottom, the blast door was sealed. A breacher attached a thermite charge to the locking mechanism. The thermite burned through the bolt in 40 seconds. Delta pushed the door open and entered the control node. Inside, 11 Iranian operators were at their stations. Delta secured all 11 in 90 seconds. The equipment in the node controlled radar handoffs for 6 separate air defense sectors covering Tehran's western and northern approaches. Delta's technical team began extracting hard drives and placing C4 charges on the server banks and communications hardware. Alpha had pushed to the aircraft shelters by 4:33. Iranian forces inside Shelter 4 had locked the blast doors from the inside and were attempting to move an aircraft out of Shelter 6 toward the taxiway. Alpha's Carl Gustav M3 recoilless rifle team put a round through the Shelter 6 door at 80 meters. The door buckled inward. The aircraft inside, a Sukhoi ground attack variant, caught fire immediately. Iranian forces attempting to flee the shelter ran into Alpha's perimeter and were captured. Alpha began placing at 4 rockets against the doors of shelters 2, 7, and 11, destroying the aircraft inside all 3. By 4:38, 6 of the 14 shelters were either destroyed or secured. Share this video so people understand what a full US Air Force combat alert actually means in practice. At the 30-minute mark, Bravo had reached the radar array field on the eastern plateau. 6 mobile radar units sat on concrete pads, their antennas rotating. Bravo placed Javelin missiles on 2 of the units from 210 meters. Both missiles hit. Both radar units were destroyed. Bravo placed C4 charges on the remaining 4 units and set 4-minute timers. Iranian Forces Quick Reaction Squad 3 reached the eastern plateau at 4:47 with 22 soldiers. Bravo's 19 Malawian Quachas grenade launcher opened up from an elevated position 140 meters north. The first burst of 40mm grenades landed 8 meters in front of the squad's lead element. The squad went to ground and did not advance. Bravo held them there until the C4 charges detonated and all 4 remaining radar units were destroyed. At 4:51, Delta completed the extraction of 34 hard drives from the control node. The C4 charges were armed. Delta moved back up the corridor. At 4:54, the charges detonated. The control node was destroyed. Iranian forces would need 18 months to rebuild the hardware and the data that was inside it. By 4:58, extraction had begun. 6 U.S. Air Force helicopters reached the plateau from the northwest. The first chalk of soldiers boarded at the northern end of the compound. Iranian forces reinforcements from Tehran, 2 convoys totaling 140 soldiers, were 22 kilometers out. They would not arrive in time. By 5:08, all 112 U.S. Air Force personnel were off the plateau. The last helicopter cleared Iranian airspace at 5:19. If this operation shocked you, comment Alpha below. The final count: 5 U.S. Air Force personnel wounded, none killed. Iranian forces suffered 67 killed, 38 wounded, and 19 captured. Equipment destroyed included 6 aircraft, 6 radar arrays, the underground control node, and communications hardware valued at approximately $340 million. The facility that Iran had spent 4 years building to control the air defense of its capital was reduced to burning shelters and silent servers in 43 minutes. Iranian Forces Command had believed the plateau was too far from the border, too well defended, and too hardened for any ground force to reach and destroy before help arrived. What they did not have was 112 U.S. Air Force operators willing to move through 4 simultaneous breaches in the dark and take the whole compound apart before Tehran could react. Like and subscribe if you want to see what happens when the next alert goes out.